So let's get started. My name is Melissa, and I'm a senior product marketing manager here at StackAdapt, and I am delighted to be your host for this insightful session. I'm thrilled to have an incredible panel of executives with me today to unravel the intricacy of Martech. It's a pleasure to have all of you here. And let's get started by having each of you give a brief introduction of who you are, starting with Tali. Over to you.
Nice. Well, I'm incredibly honored to be invited alongside Anna and Mike. I have tremendous respect for you, and I cannot wait for this conversation. And Melissa, thanks for being the moderator for this conversation. So I was thinking about just a quick introduction of myself. So I'm a co-founder and CEO. I got into the space of digital advertising 13 years ago when I joined a company that built a web platform on top of Facebook's API. And so this was I think they got access in 2010. And so the entire business was all about social gaming. So promoting like social games. And I distinctly remember when Facebook just introduced a concept of likes for brand pages. And suddenly, you had this, all these brands really understanding that there's this new universe of attention that could be reached, where they can reach users digitally specifically, but everybody was really trying to figure out like new ways to capture that value. And so a lot of this business at the time was literally selling likes on fan pages on Facebook, which is not really a thing now, but I think it just tells a story of, in the last 13 years the market evolved so much, and it's just so cool to see just where we are today in 2024, just how much more opportunity there is for innovation. And been absolutely having a blast working in the space for the past 13 years, and obviously now leading StackAdapt.
Thank you, Vitaly. I'm Mike. Nice to meet you all. I have a kind of a weird career journey that relates to Martech and the subject of today. I was a bond trader out of college, so I worked in finance until I realized all my friends were going to tech and were having the time of their lives. And the first software job I had was in email marketing. So I actually worked at a company that was addressing some of the very concepts we're discussing today, known as responsiveness, that Oracle then ended up acquiring. I worked in their Martech Cloud business unit for some time. After that, I ran new business sales at MediaMath for 5 years, so very familiar with programmatic advertising, and which is why I have a fond place in my heart for what we're doing here, StackAdapt. And then I'd say the final thing, which relates to today's discussion, is the last, call it 2 and change to 3 years of my life. I've been working in startup world as well as public companies, where building joint solutions is a key focus for the companies I've worked at to drive growth and also address the needs of our customers. So part of my voiceover today, and part of why I'm excited to talk to you all, is that I've very much lived having to think through this in really helping make sure my end customers at the end of the day could have a very frictionless experience using the platforms that I worked at. So great to meet you all, and thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, Melissa, Vitaly, and Mike. Super excited to be here. I'm Anna Grodecka-Grat, or AGG for short. I started my career actually in academia and then accidentally interviewed with MediaMath. That's where we met with Mike and worked together and spent quite a few years looking at the evolution of a DSP world, which was fascinating and amazing. Then spent a few years in a big tech, Amazon and Google, worked both on the advertising side, but also client side, thinking about marketing strategies, analytics there within Amazon Global Media and Entertainment Group. And then exactly 6 months ago, joined StackAdapt to lead the global client services organization.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to hear from all of you today. Before we dive in, I want to share a stats with our guests that I found quite interesting, and I think it might surprise you as well. So, according to Statista, in 2023, the global Martech market was valued at a staggering 670 billion US dollars. It really begs the question of what are the compelling benefits that's really driving marketers to invest such a significant portion of their budget into Martech. Well, you're all lucky because that's exactly what we're going to explore with our panels today. So let's pull back the curtain and see what this multi-billion-dollar industry, what makes it tick. So to set the stage, let's start with an overview of the current trends in the Martech space. Vitaly, Could you share some insights on what's happening in the industry and where does StackAdapt fit in?
Yeah, I mean, this is absolutely a topic we can talk about about for days, and there's so many trends that are happening in just broader internet in general that do impact our business and business of any marketer. And I would say, if I was to call out one that is something that's top of mind for me is, and obviously I'm going to speak from a vantage point of being in a programmatic advertising platform within ad tech ecosystem. But I would say the trend that's top of mind is convergence between ad tech and martech. And if we see the path to evolution between these two ecosystems, you can see that within martech, a lot of companies have focused historically on customer engagement, funnel optimization, landing page optimization, and which is all great. But inevitably, you come to a point where the big question is, well, we need more customers. How can we get that? From an ad tech perspective, which is really just a natural evolution of broader, like a traditional media buying, a lot of conversations have been around more like media level conversation of media metrics like reach, CPM, and we see that there's a clear evolution within ad tech in the direction of understanding business metrics, driving marketing outcomes. So it's within ad tech, it's really has been an evolution from media to marketing, and so as uh, the way I see it today, to be successful is just it's impossible to have these very fragmented two ecosystems exist, whether with one team internally or with external teams that are supporting other stakeholders that are supporting the business. There is a clear opportunity to break down the walls and integrating these two ecosystems in one cohesive solution that ultimately will impact the business of companies that leverage these technologies. So I would say convergence is the main topic that I'm excited about.
I think that's definitely very interesting because yes, if marketers are working things in silo, nothing would work properly. So if everything is working together in a cohesive manner, I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. Anna, are there any notable trends that you have observed on your side that you would like to share?
Sure. I think that a few things that I've been observing, both just looking at what's going on in the industry, discussing with our clients, and that's across MarTech and art and ad tech. I think the first one is still a big focus on measurement. How do you use your first party data in a combination with second or third party data? And that's regardless if we're going to keep cookies or not. This is just, I always joke that this is the year 10 of this is a year of attribution again, and trying to figure out the right model and what do we do across the marketing and advertising initiatives. So important to have frameworks, so important to have a good orchestration and activation of your data and measurement across different channels and different platforms, and really focus on like the lifetime value and the objectives that you have as a marketer or as a business. The second one as well, the continuation of AI and automation and all we do, both in driving campaign performance or all the comms and activation performance, but also finding efficiencies in how to do it. Like tech is one part of the equation. I think the talent and processes and how do you run it, it's an important one, and a ton of amazing new technologies and companies who create a ton of advancement within AI and automation. And then the third one, it was interesting also when we were recently at the Cannes Creativity Festival, is how we are seeing the blend of creative and technology. It used to be two very different conversations. Like, here is what we're doing with our creative concepts and working with creative agencies, and here what we are doing within the activation arm and technologies. I see more and more how these are blending, how we are using Gen AI, and how we are streamlining that process. And it looks very different if it's maybe a very, very big and sophisticated marketer versus a smaller one, and finding the best solution for you. So really, really great trend to see how these two are naturally combining.
Thank you so much for your insights. I definitely think these trends are top of mind for a lot of marketers. So it would be quite interesting to let's dig a little deeper and see how like the impact they are impacting marketers, but let's see how it really is impacting. So, Mike, from your side, from your experience leading the strategic partnership team here at StackAdapt, what are some of those key benefits marketers are seeing when they successfully integrate with different Martech solutions?
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. It's a good question. I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record of the theme of utilization of first-party data, which I'm sure everyone on this call hears every other week, so it's not necessarily new. But I think now more than ever, like I always like to boil it back to like the why before you get into the how. If you think about the last couple of years, which any agency or brand that's trying to drive an outcome, you're being pushed to do more with less consistently, and also you're being confronted with the fact that consumers have more choice than ever before. So you're being pressured to be relevant as you do it. And I think that's important to really understand because then it drives the context of why you have to do a lot of these. So back to utilization of first party data, uh, you are fighting every moment if you're an advertiser to deliver something relevant to drive an outcome. And because of that, you have to be much more intentional about understanding what you're going to say to someone and why and who exactly you want to say it to. So one of those benefits that marketers see in using their first party data more is actually being accurate and informed with who they go engage and why they engage with them to begin with, right? Spending the time up front to say, what is the business objective I'm trying to drive? Who are the people that are most likely going to get me to that business objective? And then devising the strategy around how I'm going to go reach them. That's ultimately why systems that contain that first party data, such as data warehouses, CRM providers like Snowflake, HubSpot, et cetera, provide such immense value to our partners. So starting there first and foremost is like obviously the most blatant benefit of MarTech being connected to ad tech. I'd say the second thing is profitability and efficiency. I mean, anyone that's on the phone that runs an agency or is part of an agency that every week your weekly team meeting is, we have to constantly show that we're being operationally efficient, right? Well, how do you do that? Is you have to work with partners that are connected and make it easy to use them together, right? And I think who experiences that more than ever are the businesses that are really trying to reorient themselves around being profitable and still driving growth. And I think how that connects itself in terms of just the MarTech stack that you end up picking, right, is like it's putting marketers and agencies in a position more than ever to say and ask the question of who are you integrated with? What are the benefits of that integration? How do you prioritize your integrations as well? So interoperability is definitely like a key benefit because it reduces that, I'd say, excess cost manual labor that traditionally people were okay with in environments where they weren't being pushed as much on being profitable. And I think the final one's orchestration and personalization. So again, buzzwords that I know a lot of you are like, great, keep throwing buzzwords at me. But I boil it down to like real life examples. I wear contact lenses. I replenish those contact lenses once a year. If you rely on third-party cookies to try to reach me and convince me to come back to you 1-800-contacts, like you're probably reaching me at the wrong time because I refresh my cookies, I delete them, and it fades over time, right? But 1-800-contacts is sitting on a database of people that have purchased from them before, and they know exactly that on average, between 6 to 8 months preceding the replenishment cycle, that's probably like the golden selling window to re-engage and build brand visibility with Mike Novosel and make him aware of me. And the same, I'd say, dynamic applies also in like travel as a case study. So in those sorts of situations, right, I think the key benefit is that by connecting systems where that really robust understanding of who your customer is, within reaching them, it makes it so that you actually can not sound like you're just a noisy brand, but you're being very intentional, thoughtful, and considerate. And then the consumer perceives value in what you're presenting them with, and they're more likely to engage with you. So those are some of the key benefits. I just riff on that.
Yeah, I definitely think those are fantastic points. And even just a marketer myself, like just better utilization of first party data does increase that efficiency. And we definitely are seeing that as a game changer ourselves. Vitali, what do you think? And is there any other additional comments that you would like to add?
Yeah, I think what you're saying about first party data is absolutely correct. I think one way to think about it is just really a question of ownership of your own destiny. Platforms. If you reflect on success of companies like Shopify and how they essentially offered an alternative for merchants to building their business on top of sort of borrowed land instead of building something that they can own long term. I think there's something to be said about data or ownership of data as a strategic asset that you can continue improving on and developing over long term, so that you essentially control much better way of how you collect, segment, activate those users across all channels versus just simply relying on walled gardens to drive traffic. And if anything changes, you're essentially getting you immediately feeling that pain. So as a business, I think strategically, it's incredibly important to own your own destiny, and owning your customer data is just absolutely critical for any business. I think another thing here to say from agency perspective, I think that presents a very unique opportunity, because agency business in a lot of historically have evolved, or for many marketing agencies, it's been evolution from creative and media side, less so much about data and technology. And I think, with more technologies becoming very user-friendly, low code, it presents an opportunity for agencies to create that additional value by being almost stewards of this first-party data for brands, and really helping them develop strategies to maximize it. So I think there's a clear opportunities for agency and services companies to help brands maximize the use of that data, because the truth is most companies can do a lot more and a lot better utilizing their data assets. So there's a clear value proposition that a lot of agencies can go out to, of connecting all these data assets all the way down to distribution, advertising. And right now, for the most part, it's not being done, which can create certainly an opportunity for those who want to lead into it, bring on talent that can help stand up these functions. And I think a lot of value can be created there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that, to your point, like the analogy that you brought up, it's super important, and just companies and agencies themselves, if they're able to better control the data and like how to serve those personalized ads, it definitely does add a lot of value to the end brand client as well, and not even to the clients, but even to just the user that they're trying to reach at the end of the day. Well, so I want to kind of get real a little bit, because I'm a marketer myself, and we get really excited when it comes to any like new Martech tool that we're utilizing. And many times that you'll find that like, oh, this is super cool, we want to use it. And then when we start integrating, there might be headaches that we experience right from the integration. Mike, so from your experience with your team, how does StackAdapt navigate through these partnerships? And when you're selecting partners for our brands and agencies to help them in their day-to-day workflow, and for any potential partners that are actually listening, what are some of those qualities you look for a successful collaboration?
Thanks, Melissa. The first one, this is going to sound like a too simplistic of an answer, but we listen to our customers. So I think one thing that, even preceding me joining StackAdapt, the company's done a really good job of is really being conscious of customer requirements, and then having our sales and services teams that engage with our customers every day really put their voice front and center. And then we roll that up periodically to say, what are the integrations customers are most frequently asking for? How does that differ region by region, segment by segment? And then how do we then stack rank our prioritization, our roadmap accordingly? So advice for customers is that if you want something, speak up, because then we'll listen. So on the flip side of it, I'd say, like, from a partner perspective, right, I think there's a couple things to keep in mind. One of them is that it's always boiling it back down to like, what's the value for the shared customer, right? It sounds, again, very simplistic, but a lot of, I'd say, the ecosystem sometimes forgets that the whole point of partnership to begin with, it's to reduce friction in engaging with two platforms or providers that tend to coincide a lot with the same customer base, right? So, I'd say thinking about it that way, and then also taking a step beyond just, hey, how do we connect it so it's just plumbing of data in, data out, but how do we build something that's like now unique and differentiated that really helps the marketer at the end of the day, I think is another thing I would always encourage partners to think about. It's not just plugging into one another, it's also building things that then truly make the experience for the end brand or agency that much fundamentally more easy. I think the final thing in that regard too is just making it really easy to work with one another is a lost science as companies have gotten bigger over time. So what do I mean by that? And it's a focus I'm putting front and center for our own team here, is when partners knock on our door, we should make it easy for them to engage with us, and vice versa, right? So building programs that make it super easy for the end partner to know, hey, if I'm trying to go integrate with StackAdapt to solve this problem, here's the playbook. This problem, here's the playbook. So I think, ecosystem partners that we find present the opportunity to engage with them in that capacity and make it a lot easier. And then, I think the last unwritten rule is commitment to support and commitment to shared investment, right? I think there's a saying that, like, unless there's skin in the game, no one's really committed to it, right? So I think the best partnerships I've ever been privy to, both parties have put in the time and resourcing to make it mutually beneficial, and then their customers truly flourish and truly benefit by virtue of that. I think a really good example of our own world here is HubSpot for our customers has been a really lean-in partner that's helped with education, enablement, and a lot of our customers have found significant value of our systems being integrated, and so much so that we were featured on their top apps to use. So I'm very thankful for their partnership as a good litmus of what a great ecosystem partner looks like for us.
Thank you, Mike. That's very insightful. I also love the fact that you emphasize on our partnership is also based on a lot of like what our clients' voices and what their concerns are. But not only that, but making sure that the partners that we do integrate with, there is that value that we can provide to our clients' problems, essentially. Anna, from your experience firsthand on our clients using these integrations, can you share any insights or any common challenges that marketers are facing with integrating with any new technologies, and maybe how a StackAdapt's partnership has helped address any of these problems?
Thank you, Melissa. And I think a lot of what I'm going to share is similar to what Mike shared because our teams work so closely together when working on these partnerships and then activations. Starting maybe with challenges, I would echo Mike again on like finding partners who listen and understand your needs. So sometimes what we see when different partners would come in and pitch their offering, they focus on themselves and focus on the different things they can do without even asking, what's your biggest opportunity? Where do you need help? What are you looking for in this specific partnership? And then just choosing across the different offerings and the fact that a tech provider or a company has a lot of different integrations doesn't mean that these are actually the ones that the client needs or they're going to be helpful in the marketing or advertising activities, and just truly listening and understanding their marketing objectives. What do they want to do with the data or with the partnerships is truly important. So that's something on the challenges and how we are solving for this in our strategic client services across, starting from the initial conversations with our prospecting clients throughout the full life cycle. And we never stop asking because the needs and the challenges of clients one quarter could be very different next quarter as the ecosystem is evolving, their needs evolving, and especially with many of the agencies that we work with, they also bring new brands and new opportunities and new things that we can partner on. I would say that's one thing. The other thing within the challenges is sometimes clients don't realize how much custom work, either development or servicing, they will need to do when they integrate with new partners or start using a new vendor. And that's something what we aspire to help, being that extension of the team, help them understand and streamline this, making sure that the access that they have, across inventory, creative, any of the data partnerships and so on is relevant and is at scale as well. And then again, that overall strategic like support wrapper across assistance with integrations, assistance with deal setting, the creative needs, activation needs, and some of it we can execute on behalf of the clients, but some of it is really enablement and us helping and guiding and asking the right questions. And just the scale of the thousands and thousands of brands and agencies we're working with, just the experience and the playbooks and the shared practices that we can share with our clients and partners. It's something that is helping us, making them successful and pass through like the cold start with a new partnership or cold start problem with any new campaign and activation is something that we can help minimize as well.
Thanks, Anna. I want to build a little bit on this because I think it's quite important for marketers to really evaluate everything that both you and Mike have brought up as very important points when it comes to thinking about which integrations to keep in mind. So I'm going to pass it over to Vitaly. From your perspective, why should marketers prioritize platforms that offer a robust integration when building their tech stack? So what are some of those impacts that they should think about? Maybe that could be from an efficiency standpoint or help improve ROAS.
I would say, in today's world, having a lot of integrations is in some ways table stakes. It's just I think an average company uses hundreds of different pieces of software. They need to talk to each other. And I think it's the table stakes that everybody's going to have many different integrations. I think on evaluating a partner solely on the number of integration, I think it's a vanity metric, because that number only looks great in a marketing decks, but you really need to understand in practice, what does that actually mean? I mean, to me, I only look at what are the companies, or like what are the technologies that we use, and does that partner integrate with those systems? For if they don't, then it's irrelevant who else they work with. And then I think another perspective here is just, integrations, they're not yes or no type of setup. Some of them can be done in a very native way, where it's incredibly tightly integrated technologies that are making data synchronization very seamless. It gives a lot of flexibility how you interact between two platforms. Or it can be done in a very, very low lift type of, kind of almost like as a checkbox type of thing. And that makes a huge difference. So on a surface level, just because somebody has a certain integration does not mean anything, unless you actually pressure test it and see, like, I would like to see that in action. Like, let's do a screen share. Let's go through that integration together and see what kind of lift does that take. Does that require picking up a phone and calling engineers on the other side and telling them, like, you guys need to enable some integration, or can it be done with a click of a button? All of that really matters. So I would say, to me, it's in evaluation of integration from ROI perspective, I think, well, first and foremost, you need to understand, like, why do you need the integrations in the first place, and then second, really understanding how they are going to be operationalized in real time, in like practically. So seeing the actual UI, actually trying to perform certain activities, it's very important to see whether this is real or just hype. So I think evaluating integrations, actually try using it first.
Yeah, I definitely think that that point about pressure testing is so key, because if you don't test it before actually buying into it or seeing how the platform works with all of your integration, um, yeah, to your point, it may not work. And I think that other takeaway that you have there is just the seamlessness of the integrations working together. Mike, from your perspective, is there anything you would like to add on this point?
I mean, Vitaly summed it up well. But there's like maybe other like two bits of advice I'd give. One is start with why. It sounds so simple again, but a lot of people rush into going, I need this, and then they go pursue this. And then they waste hours and hours realizing, oh, this is not actually what I need. So what do I mean by that is, if you are an agency and you wake up every day and you go, oh my gosh, 60% of my day was spent on manual things between project management of different tasks that span getting a client's campaign intake from them, and then actually building a media plan and then getting executed. Pause and say, what are those parts of that day-to-day behavior that I would like to be less friction filled, and who solves that exact problem, right? Workflow management, project management tools. Okay, great. Now I'm going to go out and understand who are the best providers there, et cetera, do my research. Because a lot of people, I'd say, conflate the problem with the solution, and they actually put the solution ahead of the problem, which is a common misunderstanding. And the second thing I say is, again, similar to Vitaly's point, right, is like, the beautiful thing about today's day and age is like, I worked in the early days, I'd say, or later-ish days of more of the big purchase software as a service sort of category, where it was normal to have to buy big things, put a lot of investment into them, and then you're on the hook for 3 years. Now it's the inverse, right? The actual providers that are winning out in market and providing the most value to their customers, the ones that are being really flexible and being highly but meaningfully interoperable. And I think the best manifestation of which providers are best for you are the ones where, like, the end customers vote that they are the best to use. There is no better source of knowing, before I walk into something, is this a good relationship to walk into, than checking the people and how they reference that provider through G2 Crowd, Reddit, Gartner, Forrester, you name it. So yeah, the sort, listen to the customer, right? And I think you're going to find that it'll actually land you in a good place with someone that does do a good job of being flexible and amenable of meeting the needs of what you may have a need for. So
Thank you, Mike. I think that those are very important points that you brought up there. So we've talked a lot about the importance of integration. I kind of want to switch gear a little bit and kind of talk a little bit on one key area where these integrations can really make a big difference. And we talked a little bit about it already in the beginning of the webinar is personalization. And to Mike's point, he echoed it many times that this is a buzzword that probably everyone is hearing over and over again right now. And it's a very hot topic. So Anna, from your experience working with all of our clients right now, what are some practical, actionable steps that marketers can really implement to have a very effective personalization strategy? Maybe they may not have a super advanced tech setup, but how can they leverage integrations to help enhance their personalization efforts?
Yeah, I think I'm going to start with just emphasizing how important it is to think about personalization in the sense of relevance to the customer. Like when we look at there's various studies out there. One I'm going to quote is the recent one from McKinsey, just saying that 71% of consumers expect companies to deliver personalized interactions. And even more than that, they get frustrated when this doesn't happen. And I'm sure everyone listening in and here on the panel has had so many interactions online when the content you see, including advertising and marketing content, when it's not relevant and it's too disruptive, how this can actually ruin your experience, online or on any other channels. Um, the other thing I would say as well, when you start thinking about your personalization strategy, is like starting with the why, start with the customer consumer needs or the brand needs. And what is the problem we are trying to focus on or the opportunity in there? And as Mike said, like not focusing on the solution. And I've seen that kind of quite a few times also leading personalization and data science teams in the past, that especially when we have very, very advanced technology and talent in place, we may have a tendency to go in and try the most sophisticated modeling on the recent AI or recent ML that is out there, forgetting about why are we doing this and what is the thing that we want to do. And the simplicity, it's so, so important. Certain things, especially when you think about brand awareness and some of the more upper funnel, you can do very simple relevance and messaging personalization in there that doesn't need to be at the individual level, versus when you go a little bit deeper into, let's say, down in the funnel when you're shopping and things like that, that's where you maybe need this like dynamic creative optimization or different personalization on the messaging that you are seeing. But starting simple, it's so important, and really just putting the test and learn agendas in place, and here is what I want to solve for, here's how I'm going to do it. And very often the simple solutions are going to solve for the complex problems or the 80% of your use cases that you need to do within your marketing personalization as well. And I think some of the things of like, how to leverage your integrations, really being thoughtful on where do I want to integrate, where can I do it just at the cohort level versus I need a sophisticated technology and integrations in order to do it. And then thinking about also the teams and the skills that you need in order to focus on the personalization, and always think about the customer and always think about the consumer. And I always think about it whenever you set up a campaign or any of your activations, go and check it yourself. How does it feel? How does it look? Is it working as intended? And so we don't remove that consumer view and check on the individual experience as well.
Thank you, Anna. I think it's very clear that personalization used to be more of like a nice to have in campaigns, and now it's more of a make it or break it factor for the customer experience. And I can definitely say for myself, when I do see an ad and it's not relevant to what I need at the moment, I'm like, you're wasting ad dollars. Now that we have covered a little bit off the ground of the current state of Martech and its benefits and its challenges, I kind of want to look into the future a little bit. So, Vitaly, I'm curious from your perspective, looking ahead, what are some skills that you believe marketers, it's crucial actually for marketers to need when it comes to and to stay competitive in this landscape?
Well, I'm a business person first and marketer second, so I'm biased to say that it all comes back to just asking the right questions on why it matters. And I think the most productive conversations we have with marketing teams when we talk about strategically important items for the business. And so then it translates into marketing strategies that very neatly align with what we're trying to do as a business. So I think a skill for any marketer or anybody in business should be just being very good at asking the right questions to understand why it matters. What does the company try to accomplish? Like what matters at the top, and how can at every level organization align what they're doing in order to drive those outcomes. So I think just developing overall business acumen is incredibly important for anybody, marketing team, just like anybody else. And I would say, with respect to specific tools, the world is changing so rapidly that whatever people are using today or whatever they're going to use a few years from now, it's inevitably going to evolve. Even if they use the same technologies, just by virtue of evolution, it's gonna feel like a new company, a new product, because it's natural. Like companies that are building fast, the product's going to change pretty rapidly as well. So obviously, staying current with technologies of choice that they prefer. I would say partner with somebody who's pushing the envelope and builds very fast, just so that whatever you're using is sort of the closest on the forefront of any technology in any domain, whether it's marketing, finance, ops, and so forth. Yeah, those are, I would say, be the top ones.
Yeah, I definitely think, to your point, understanding the fundamental problem, to then pick any specific software. To your point, softwares are going to change, so being able to find anything that really helps solve that fundamental problem, I think it's quite key. Anna, from your perspective, is there any vantage point that you've seen from a client service perspective that you would offer as an advice for a marketer?
Similar to Vitali, I think that curiosity and being open to learning and trying new things, it's a very important one. We see it both within like tech and services and marketing worlds as well. The ecosystem is changing so much. How we are doing things, what we are doing today versus next quarter or next year is going to change. If you don't have that natural curiosity and reading yourself, asking good questions, discussing and brainstorming ideas, I think it's like you're very quickly going to plateau and not be relevant, I think, for what the marketers are, what they need and what type of conversations and what they are looking at partnerships on their side as well. The other thing I would say as well, that like in the past, the data science teams, analytics, reporting, they have different names. They were almost like separate function within the organization. Now, how we are data driven, we are all sitting on so much data in order to be really good at driving the high ROI, optimize your level of effort, and really thinking about driving best results. The more self-service and independent you are, how to be data-driven, how to get access to it. I mean, the technology is amazing. You can literally type it in a natural language, and it's going to give you so many answers without the need of finding and talking to a data scientist, and just being open to it and trying yourself. It's magical. Like I use it every day, and it's just amazing the amount of information you can get and the speed of doing things. So, for any of the roles as well. So I would say these are like the two things across what I would, say within the marketing or tech space.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna. Mike, as you see more integrations between different marketing technologies, how can marketers ensure they're building a flexible and scalable Martech ecosystem? And what are some pitfalls they should kind of look out for to avoid?
You're talking to someone who's tripped in some pitfalls, so I can help on this one.
Perfect.
For context, I've run sales and marketing before, so like I've had to go through that painful experience of negotiating, talking to these vendors, et cetera, and no different buying experiences in that regard. I think I'll pull from Vitali's point to a degree, right? Like I think people overlook the fact that in today's day and age, it's like totally okay to ask the vendor on the other end of the table to be flexible and let you trial it before you end up marrying the partner at the end of the day, right? Because that's an expectation now. It's becoming the norm, whereas 3 to 5 years ago it was much less the norm. So don't be shy, first and foremost, to push the end provider to give you validation that what they're about to sign on with long term actually works first, right? Because any great partner, and you'll notice the companies that actually do a good job in this regard, like they are acutely aware if they give you a chance of trying the platform, you're going to be so impressed with it that obviously you're going to keep using it and you're going to want to sign on. Usually the ones that don't do that are the ones that are more concerned with you not being very impressed by the experience. So I think that's one thing, right? I brought up the voice of the customer before. That's a no-brainer. And I think like this is a kind of a more subtle question that I think people overlook to ask when they're engaging with partners more about these days. And it kind of expands upon Vitali's point about resourcing. Is like I get asked a lot of, how many people, employees do you have, right? And I've been in the seats where I've been evaluating vendors, and I care about knowing, how profitable are they? Are they going to be around 5 years from now? Are they investing aggressively in R&D? Help me understand what percentage of your expenses every year went into R&D, right? Those things are really important to know, because then if you get good validation of the fact that this company is going to be here tomorrow, that they're investing aggressively to stay ahead of the curve, and on top of it, they're going to backstop me with people to help pick up the phone and answer the question when I have a problem, like that ends up solving a lot of the fundamental pitfalls most people fall into. And I think back to like the just general strategy, right? And the subject of the why is there's a variety of different architecture out there that lays out the Lumascape or Martechscape, like Chief Market, Martech, et cetera, about different classes of solutions you need. But I think if there's one simple thing that in the ad world people lose sight of is if you're an agency, making sure when you're on the phone with that client every week, you're being conscious of asking the question of, hey, what other systems do you use in other departments beyond yours? Because more often than not, there's something valuable that they probably already bought that you, as the agency servicing them and working with them, can actually capitalize upon and then drive them better outcomes. And like a really simple example of this I could bring you is certain localized industries. They work with e-commerce platforms to facilitate selling their goods, right? Those platforms have a lot of really valuable first-party data. They facilitate order management, third-party delivery, you name it, right? But usually those sit in like the operations teams or the sales teams. Marketing team sometimes may or may not even be aware they have that as an asset, right? So if you're an agency or you're a brand for that matter, just always asking internally around like, hey, out of curiosity, where does our data live? What tools are we using? That'll help you get ahead of identifying where there's low hanging fruit to actually use things you already have today as well. So those are some of some general pitfalls I share as advice.
Well, Mike, I am really glad. Thank you for sharing your experience, and I'm glad that I chose you from all the panelists to share your experience because you've experienced some of this firsthand.
You can tell I've been burned once or twice.
That's fine.
So to wrap, I would love to have each one of you share one piece of advice for our audience. What's the most impactful action a marketer can take today to improve the use of their marketing technology and drive better results? I will love to start with Vitali.
I don't know if you're going to love this answer because it has nothing to do with technology, actually.
That's okay.
But I think it's honestly just reflecting on when was the last time you as a marketer spoke to the customer, right? And whether if you're on an agency side, like how much time do you spend with customers who recently bought the product of your brand? If you're a marketer in-house, how much time do you spend talking to customers that recently bought a product? I think the amount of insight that you can get qualitatively from that is unquantifiable. So I would say, before you jump to tinkering with technology, I think there is a absolutely massive case for just getting in front of customers and talking to them and trying to get some of this feedback directly. So I would say most impactful thing you can do is just reach out to 3 customers and get on the phone with them.
Thank you, Vitali. Anna?
I think for me, it would be a little bit of a summary of what we chatted through. Like the marketing or ad tech ecosystem can be so overwhelming and complex, right? And all the different things that are happening every week. And then the focus on personalization, the new AI activities that are happening or launches and so on. And so I think just keeping a little bit of like a grace and patience also with yourself and then starting simple. We all talk about like how much data everyone is and the focus, and you have to personalize everything. You have to do big data things within your first party data, but very often just starting with specific customer need or use case and starting with the why and really starting with a couple of simple solutions to test with and then iterate on this. I think where I've seen some of the marketers or brands fail is they started to do very complicated things from the very beginning, trying to do 10 different things in testing, which of course dilutes the learnings as well. So simplicity and customer centricity and the focus that Vitali mentioned are really, really key.
Thank you, Anna. Mike?
I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball versus my previous message. I'm going to say work backwards from the outcome you're trying to get. So, a lot of people know about like Amazon's written culture of laying out, like if you were going to go achieve that objective, like how would you shout it from the rooftop about how you just drove a great result for your client? What was the outcome, right? Then forcing yourself to think sequentially of like, what are all the things that precede that? Ironically enough, too, it's also like a thing for anyone who's gone through career development frameworks of, hey, I want to get to this role and how do I work my way toward it? It's the same sort of train of thought, right? And the reason I share that as like a simple piece of tactical advice is that because then when you work that way, you start to go, oh, shoot, like in order for me to do this, I'm missing these things. I have to go fill these voids. I have to find these solutions. I have to connect the dots on 1, 2, and 3. And then you leave with a much more informed approach of where to start, right? And that goes again between skill development to picking a Martech platform to picking a DSP to you name it. But I think that's just like a very tactical thing that a lot of people, they rush to the things that precede the outcome versus starting with the outcome and saying, what are the things I need to do first in order to deliver that outcome? So that'd be my advice.
Thanks, Mike. Well, I'm really happy with, thank you for everyone sharing their advice. I'm so impressed by the current discussion we have, and I certainly don't want it to end. But that said, we do have audiences who have been waiting patiently with their questions. So I'm going to spend the last few minutes here asking some of the questions. So question number 1, I work for a mid-sized company with limited resources. How can we prioritize which platform or first-party data tools to utilize without breaking the bank? Who would like to take this question? I feel like, Mike, maybe this could be for you.
Sure, I can jump in. So, man, yeah, I feel like I kind of answered this one already, maybe. Like the beautiful thing about in today's age, and also like having Chat GPT, is usually more often than not, you can pretty quickly get to the solution that's actually voted by the customer as being best for what you're trying to achieve. So, I would say how to prioritize which to utilize without breaking the bank, right? Like go do your research, look for terms such as financial flexibility, lower minimums or no minimums, right? Best in class service, best in class support, flexible integrations. To Vitali's point, just don't judge off the number of integrations also, but think about what are the other platforms you're likely going to use to extend that first party data elsewhere and prioritize who integrates with them. So those would be some of the quick tips I'd probably give, but I don't know if anyone else has anything they'd want to add.
Yeah, I would say, maybe before you even start selecting specific tools, maybe it's helpful to understand like what exact things you want to do with first party data, right? Because there's so many technologies out there, they have so many capabilities, and the truth is probably for the most part you end up using a very small part of those capabilities, and it's going to be fairly rudimentary. So just see if you can hack it together in a more basic way. Like first try to understand like what am I trying to do? Like what is important to me? You say, okay, I want to activate my first party data. I want to target people, that I've isolated within my CRM. Okay, well, could there be an easier way to reach those users than buying a whole blown first party data platform to push the data there, then to activate it? Maybe there are more seamless way to get this sort of proof of concept off the ground. And maybe the way to think about it before you buy to point from Mike is just think of like how you can hack together a bit of an MVP for the concept that you're trying to solve for, and then see if there's a technology that can streamline it, automate it, scale it up. But start with something that validates the hypothesis in the first place. Like, is first party data value like actually driving results for me, right? Versus how can I buy technology to then try first party data?
Yeah, so I think here it's really just understanding again from the conversations we've had in today's discussion, it's really understanding that fundamental problem and seeing how you can solve for it. Um, Another question that came up is we've recently integrated several Martech solutions, but we're struggling to get our team to adopt them fully. Any tips for improving internal adoption and maximizing our investment? And I feel like this could be a great question for you.
Yeah, happy to take it. I think bringing it to the why, I think understanding, first of all, why did we integrate or brought these several MarTech solutions and really thinking about like the jobs to be done or the use cases, for teams internally or the partners that are to use those. I think this is an important one. I'll actually share because, the speed of development at StackAdapt is so quick that even us internally thinking about like, how do you start adopting this, bring it to market, share it, and so on. It's an amazing opportunity you have and solve for this. And something that our enablement team internally is doing is the framework of thinking about them of like majors and minors and really quarterly or monthly themes. So it doesn't feel like you have 10 different marketing solutions or tech solutions or processes that you want to your team or your clients to adopt, but think about the use cases and the themes. What's the most important thing to start using versus the other things are more fundamentals or minor ones. And then the other one as well, I would say, I don't think the overall adoption of it is the metric to optimize towards. It's more around like, when do you need it? What are the best practices for what type of things you need them for? What type of verticals or marketing objectives or KPIs? And then thinking about the adoption within. There is a risk if you push adoption of things that actually don't make any difference on your campaign performance or internal processes, that you're just optimizing metrics for the sake of getting to 100%, where that doesn't have any impact on the business. So these are some of the things I think they translate into, enablement and adoption of new technologies, but also new features or new processes.
But this is maybe not related to Martech, but in the past we've done some tests when we implement new software. We actually run it. We select a group of people where we implement the software and a group of people where we don't, and then we try to measure the performance in this kind of like exposed and control way and see like, has there been an impact on specific metrics that we're trying to influence? And then before you're committing to rolling out across the whole organization, making all this massive change management. So that's another hack maybe that can work in some instances.
Yeah, I definitely think all of your comments are is very valid, and also like just pressure testing again to your point to seeing if it really works or not. Um, Another question that came up is with all the talk about first party data, what strategies can you recommend for smaller businesses to effectively collect and utilize this data? Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd answer in two ways. So first one, right, is I'd say it's always think about the value exchange with the customer, right? So how do you create moments where like they actually want to give you their information to begin with? And like notice a trend, right? Like, do you think Amazon and Walmart, et cetera, are getting into the movie and content game? Like for any, like just because they love making movies and content? No, it's because they're trying to create moments where you opt into engaging with them, you get value from them, but you help them better understand your preferences and who you are as a consumer. And then over time, they can also then subsequently help brands advertise to them differently, right? So I'd say if you're running a brand or you're an agency supporting it, like sponsored content, owned and operated content, blogs, etc. Like those are always very simple moments to say, I'm creating value for you. And by virtue of you receiving that value, you are in turn like raising your hand and willingness to indicate more about your preferences with me and more about what you care about. And I will adapt how I speak to you by extension of that, right? So I think those are, just some very simple things. And then I think when it comes to like actual execution of it, so this was something I learned from my time when I was working at Cardlytics, where I kind of lived in bank data and lived in working with grocers a lot. is that grocers like known as like the first vertical within retail that had really big loyalty programs and thought about very intentionally about how does every customer in their life cycle look different, behave different, and how do I adapt to how I talk to them? I think a lot of people overlook the lost art of just simply thinking about how does like a new customer behave differently versus a new trialist versus a repeat versus a churned versus a long lapsed. What are the personas and attributes about them that differ group by group? What are their values? And how do they, by virtue of what content I see them reading and what they buy from me? And then how do I use that to change how I message to each of them individually, right? So I think it's kind of along that same lens of that working backwards framework. Like it's one, creating moments where the customer wants to actually share more with you, but then two, once you have it, being very intentional about how you use it to take an informed approach with how you speak to them.
Thanks, Mike. This is not a question, but someone in the audience made a comment saying you look like Tom Cruise.
That's why I was trying very hard not to laugh. So Laura, wherever you are, thank you.
But I'm going to ask our last question, and I think this is good for this would be a great question actually for Vitaly to answer. How does StackAdapt differentiate from other DSPs?
Well, I almost obligated to answer that question. Well, I think DSP, like we don't like calling ourselves DSP because I think DSP implies a certain sort of philosophy around how the software needs to function. And historically, DSP is essentially a complex tool to buy inventory, buy data, enable all kinds of measurement solutions. And when we started StackAdapt, the way we wanted to build the product is we wanted to approach it building, instead of being a complex media trading tool, we wanted to build it as a solution. So we wanted to think of how can we engineer both in-house or third-party capabilities into like an end-to-end product that you can essentially actually give to a customer and solve a problem. Look beyond just media metrics and think of how can we impact the business outcomes of our customers. We wanted to do it by just really heavy up on automation and AI. So that was a key thing for us from day one. So it was just apparent that that approach of media trading in the long run, it's going to go away. And the third one, we just wanted to we observed that in 2014, when we launched the product, pretty much all these product design practices that existed in SaaS never made it into ad tech. So we said, let's build something that's fast, intuitive, easy to operate, easy to learn, and bring it into ad tech. And so solution, automation, and experience. These were the key three pillars through which we think of StackAdapt at a very, very macro level. And then it obviously translates into a lot of tactical decisions about how we build our product. But I would say, for us, it's, maybe some of these decisions lead us into unconventional directions from a product perspective. But as long as it creates value for our customers, I don't really care what we call it. As long as we're building something that people like using and creates value, then I would say we're successful.
Thank you, Vitaly. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Anna. Looks like we're almost about at time. I really appreciate all of your insights and taking the time to chat with me today. For those who are listening in, we hope you found this session informative and that you can expect a link to the recording in your inbox. For any questions that we did not answer, we will respond via email, so please do stay tuned for those. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Melissa, Anna, Mike. Thanks to the audience as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye.